Hey, my culty crime crew, it's Bubbles, back with another episode of Cozy Cults and Crimes. Get ready to snuggle up, grab your favourite beverage, and join me as we delve into another chilling tale from the darker side of humanity. Before we begin, as always, I want to give a quick content warning. Tonight's episode will be discussing sensitive topics including murder, sexual assault, and violence against women. Listener discretion is advised. If you're feeling particularly sensitive or vulnerable, please feel free to skip this episode or listen at a later time when you're feeling a bit more emotionally prepared. Before we delve into tonight's chilling tale, I want to catch up with you all. First off, a massive shout out to everyone who's reached out after last week's episode. I love hearing from you guys and all your thoughts and theories about any case we do. It's always so amazing to connect with you all and see how these cases resonate. I also want to take a moment to connect on a bit of a deeper level with you guys. I'm going to be honest, and I have mentioned it in a recent TikTok, so if you guys follow me on there, you might have already seen it, but I haven't been feeling 100% mentally good this week. It's been a bit of a struggle for me. I've been feeling pretty down, and it's been tough to shake off. But you know what? I've got the best listeners in the world, and I know you've all been waiting for this week's episode. So with that, I'm pushing through, and I'm ready to face the darkness with you all right by my side. And hey, sometimes a little true crime distraction is exactly what we need. So with that, let's take a collective deep breath and travel back in time to the late 1970s. We're going to be on the sun-soaked streets of Los Angeles. It was a city pulsing with dreams and ambitions, but beneath the glitz and glamour, a sinister darkness was brewing and ready to shatter the illusion of safety and expose the city's vulnerability. 10 young women, their lives brimming with potential, were brutally snatched from the streets, their bodies left discarded on the hillsides that encircle the sprawling metropolis. A wave of terror swept through the city, leaving its residents grappling with fear and uncertainty. Between October 1977 and February 1978, the Hillside Stranglers embarked on a sadistic killing spree that would forever scar the City of Angels. Tonight, we're peeling back the layers of this horrifying case, going beyond the sensational headlines to uncover the chilling truth behind the Hillside Strangler murders. We'll explore the crimes, the complex investigation, and the twisted psychology of the killers, leaving no stone unturned in our quest for understanding. Alright, my culty crime crew. Let's set the stage for this chilling tale. We're rewinding the clock back to the late 1970s, landing right in the heart of Los Angeles, the City of Angels. Now, when you think of LA in the 70s, you might picture sun-kissed beaches, palm trees swaying in the breeze, and the allure of Hollywood glamour. And you wouldn't be wrong, but beneath that shimmering surface, a darker reality was hiding in the shadows. The late 70s were a time of stark contrasts for the city. The once booming aerospace industry, which had fueled the city's growth for decades, was facing significant cutbacks, leaving thousands unemployed and struggling to make ends meet. The economic downturn cast a long shadow, creating a sense of unease and disillusionment among those left behind. The gap between rich and the poor was growing wider, fueling social tensions and a sense of injustice. Culturally, Los Angeles was a vibrant tapestry of contradictions. punk rock anthems echoed from the legendary clubs like the Whiskey A Go Go and the Roxy, while disco beats filled the dance floors of iconic venues like the Starwood and the Troubadour. Hollywood continued its reign as the Dream Factory, churning out iconic films like Star Wars, Jaws, and Saturday Night Fever that captivated audiences worldwide. But behind the facade of glamour and excess, a sinister undercurrent was bubbling beneath the surface. The crime rate in LA was soaring to unprecedented levels at the time. The streets, once synonymous with endless summer and carefree living, now echoed with the sirens of emergency vehicles and the whispers of unease. The homicide rate in 1979 reached a staggering 1,028, the highest in the city's history at the time. The pervasive sense of insecurity, coupled with the economic uncertainties and social tensions, created a fertile ground for predators to emerge from the shadows. In this climate of uncertainty and fear, the Hillside Strangler murders became a terrifying manifestation of the city's own internal struggles. The crimes not only exposed the vulnerability of women in a patriarchal society, but also laid bare the systematic issues plaguing LA at the time. It was a time when the City of Dreams was grappling with its own nightmares, and the Hillside Stranglers were about to become the embodiment of that darkness. Now, my crew, brace yourselves, because we're about to step into some of the darker stuff. The Hillside Stranglers didn't just take lives, they shattered the innocence of a city and left a trail of heartbreak in their wake. It was a crisp autumn morning in Los Angeles, October 18th, 1977, when the first horrifying discovery was made. The lifeless body of 20-year-old Yolanda Washington, a vibrant young woman with dreams of becoming a dancer, was found discarded on a hillside overlooking the city. Her body bore the marks of a brutal struggle, her life extinguished by the cold hands of a killer. Just a few feet away from Yolanda lay another victim, 15-year-old Judith Miller, a bright and promising student whose life was tragically cut short. The juxtaposition of these two women, their lives stolen in such a senseless and cruel manner, sent shockwaves through the city. Fear gripped the heart of the people of Los Angeles as they realized a predator was lurking in their midst. The following month, the body of 21-year-old Lisa Kasten was discovered, a waitress who had simply been trying to make her way in a bustling city. The killer's brutality escalated further when they claimed the lives of two more young girls, 12-year-old Dolores Cepeda and 14-year-old Sonia Johnson. Dolores, a cheerful young girl known for her love of animals, was abducted from a bus stop, while Sonia, a talented artist with a gentle spirit, vanished while walking home from school. The nightmare continued into 1978. The new year brought no respite from the terror, as more innocent lives were taken. 28-year-old Evelyn Jane King, an aspiring actress and mother, was found murdered. 20-year-old Christina Weckler, a hopeful model, was discovered on a desolate hillside. And Lauren Wagner, an 18-year-old model and actress on the cusp of stardom, met a similar fate. The final two victims, the 17-year-old Kimberly Martin and 20-year-old Cindy Hutspeth, were found together, their lives tragically intertwined in death as they had been in their final moments. Kimberly, known for her infectious laugh, and Cindy, a music-loving college student, were cruelly taken away, leaving their families and friends in unimaginable grief. Yolanda, Judith, Lisa, Dolores, Sonia, Evelyn, Christina, Lauren, Kimberly, and Cindy. 10 young women, 10 vibrant lives stolen. I want to take a moment just to honour their memory. The impact of these murders on the community was just devastating. A wave of terror swept through LA as women were warned to stay indoors and avoid strangers. The media frenzy surrounding the case only amplified the fear, with sensational headlines and graphic descriptions of the crimes dominating the news cycle. The city that once felt like a haven for dreamers was now crippled by a chilling reality. Alright, guys, now that we've delved into the darkness of these crimes, let's turn our attention to the relentless pursuit of justice. The Hillside Strangler investigation was a complex and arduous undertaking, one that tested the limits of law enforcement's capabilities and resources. At first, the investigation faced a bunch of hurdles. Los Angeles County is massive and it has tons of different police departments. That meant at the time it was tough for them to work together and share information. It was like each department was doing its own investigation, making it super hard to actually see the connections between the murders. And without a central system to keep track of everything, important clues were easily being lost in the shuffle. The sheer number of murders, coupled with the ongoing crime wave in LA, stretched police resources so thin. Detectives were overworked and under pressure, juggling multiple cases while also trying to crack what they believed to be the work of a single perpetrator, the elusive Hillside Strangler. The flood of tips and leads, many of them false alarms, further complicated the investigation. It was trying to find a needle in a haystack, with the clock ticking away and the stakes rising with each new victim. The pressure on law enforcement was immense, and the public's fear and frustration were mounting. The killer, or killers, were cunning and careful, taking steps to cover their tracks. They often cleaned the victims' bodies to remove forensic evidence, used different vehicles for each crime, and disposed of the bodies in remote locations, making it difficult for investigators to establish a clear pattern or link the crimes together. They were playing a game of cat and mouse with the police, and for a while, it seemed like they were winning. But the tide began to turn in January of 1979, when a seemingly unrelated event thousands of miles away would provide the crucial break in the case. In Bellingham, Washington, a man named Kenneth Bianchi was arrested for the murder of 2 young women. Now, the similarities between the murder of these 2 young women and the Hillside Strangler cases raised suspicions, and detectives from LA travelled to Washington to interview Bianchi. During those interviews, Bianchi inadvertently revealed details about the LA murders that only the killer would know. This, coupled with other incriminating evidence, led to his extradition to California to face charges in the Hillside Strangler case. It was a major breakthrough, a glimmer of hope in a seemingly endless darkness. The pieces of the puzzle were finally starting to fall into place, but the investigation was far from over. Bianchi's arrest opened a new chapter, one that would shatter the initial assumption of a lone killer. Evidence pointed to an accomplice, and Bianchi's revelations ultimately led detectives to his older cousin, Angelo Bueno Jr. The realization that there were two killers involved sent shockwaves throughout the investigation, forcing the police to reevaluate their strategies and evidence. The police still had to form a solid case against both guys, and that's where forensic evidence stepped in as a silent witness. Despite the killer's attempts to clean the crime scenes, forensic experts meticulously combed through the evidence, uncovering vital clues that linked Bianchi and Bueno to the murders. Fibres, hair samples, tyre tracks, they all told a story that the killers just couldn't deny. Witness testimony and psychological profiling also played crucial roles in the investigation. Several witnesses came forward with information about Bianchi and Bueno's suspicious activities, and the FBI's Behavioural Science Unit created a psychological profile of the killers that helped investigators understand their motivations and modus operandi. The combined efforts of law enforcement agencies, forensic experts, witnesses, and the psychological profilers ultimately led to the capture and the conviction of the Hillside Stranglers, Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Bueno Jr. But the investigation was not without its flaws and controversies. The initial lack of communication between the different agencies, the intense media scrutiny, and the reliance on Bianchi's testimony, which was later questioned, all raised concerns about the integrity of the investigation. Despite these challenges, justice was ultimately served, but the Hillside Strangler case left a lasting impact on the community, exposing the dark underbelly of a city grappling with social unrest and a rising tide of violence. It also led to important changes in law enforcement procedures, ensuring that future investigations would be more efficient and effective. Now guys, it's time to delve into the minds of the monsters behind these horrific crimes. But before we do, I want to make it very clear that I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I am just a true crime enthusiast, trying to make sense of the darkness. So we'll be looking at information available to me and trying to understand the twisted psychology of Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Bueno Jr., the Hillside Stranglers. Now, Kenneth Bianchi, the younger of the two cousins, was said to be a master manipulator with a fragile ego. Abandoned by his mother and raised by an emotionally distant adoptive mother, Bianchi's childhood was marked by instability and a lack of secure attachment. It's believed that this early trauma may have contributed to his narcissistic personality disorder, which is often characterized by a grandiose sense of self-importance, a constant need for admiration, and a profound lack of empathy for others. As Dr. Martin Orn, a leading expert on personality disorders, who observed during Bianchi's trial, said he saw women as objects to be conquered and controlled, using his charm and charisma to manipulate them into vulnerable positions. Bianchi craved validation and attention, often fabricating stories about his achievements and experiences to impress others. He even went so far as to feign multiple personality disorder during the trial, claiming an alter ego named Steve was responsible for the murders. This elaborate deception ultimately failed though, but it revealed the depths of his self-preservation instincts and his unwillingness to face the consequences of his actions. Angelo Bueno Jr., the older and more dominant of the two, was a seething cauldron of rage and misogyny. From a young age, Bueno exhibited a pattern of aggression and violence, displaying a blatant disregard for authority. This early antisocial behaviour, experts believe, laid the groundwork for the darkness that would eventually consume him. Bueno harboured a deep-seated resentment towards women, rooted in his own insecurities and feelings of inadequacy. He viewed them as objects of conquest and domination, expressing his anger and frustration through acts of sexual violence. His misogyny was not just a matter of words, but a driving force behind his actions, evident in the brutal torture and degradation he inflicted upon his victims. The twisted dynamic between these two cousins created a toxic partnership. Bianchi's need for approval and Buono's need for control fueled their escalating crimes. Bianchi found a twisted sense of belonging and purpose in fulfilling Buono's dark desires, and Bueno relished the power he held over his younger, more impressionable cousin. Their combined pathologies created a perfect storm of depravity, resulting in a reign of terror that shook LA to its core. As forensic psychologist Dr. Helen Morrison, who interviewed both Bianchi and Bueno extensively, noted together they formed a deadly symbiosis. Bianchi's charms and manipulative skills lured victims into their trap, while Bueno's sadistic urges drove the escalating violence. The capture of Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Bueno Jr. marked a turning point in the Hillside Strangler case, but the pursuit of justice was very far from over. The trials that followed were a complex and often controversial journey, filled with legal manoeuvring, shocking revelations, and the ultimate quest for truth. Following his extradition from Washington, Kenneth Bianchi faced a daunting mountain of evidence in the LA courtroom. The weight of the accusations, the chilling details of the crimes, and the overwhelming forensic evidence linking him to the Strangler murders must have been crushing. Faced with the prospect of the death penalty, Bianchi, in a desperate bid for leniency, made a fateful decision. He entered a plea bargain, agreeing to plead guilty to 5 of the LA murders and to testify against his cousin, Angelo Bueno Jr., in exchange for avoiding the ultimate punishment of the death penalty. This plea deal sent shockwaves through the courtroom and beyond. Some victims' families were outraged, feeling that Bianchi was getting off far too easy. The idea of him escaping the death penalty, the very fate he had inflicted upon those innocent victims of his, was a bitter pill to swallow. The courtroom became a battleground of emotions as the families grappled with the complexities of the legal system and the desire for retribution. During the trial, Bianchi's defense team attempted a controversial strategy, claiming he suffered from multiple personality disorder, or MPD. Bianchi, under the guise of his alleged alter ego, known as Steve, he gave chilling accounts of the crimes, implicating Bueno as the mastermind and himself as a reluctant accomplice. The courtroom was captivated by this bizarre twist, but after extensive psychiatric evaluations, experts determined that Bianchi was feigning the disorder to escape the death penalty. This manipulation further solidified his reputation as a cunning and remorseless killer. Kenneth Bianchi received 6 consecutive life sentences. He was denied parole in 2010 and will be eligible to apply again next year in 2025. With Bianchi's pleas bargain secured, the spotlight shifted over to Angelo Bueno Jr. His trial was a marathon of legal proceedings, lasting over 2 years, and becoming the longest criminal trial in Californian history at the time. The courtroom was packed with spectators, journalists, and the families of the victims, all hanging on to every word, every piece of evidence presented. Bueno vehemently maintained his innocence, his defiance echoing through the courtroom. He claimed that Bianchi had acted alone and that the evidence against him was circumstantial. The defense relentlessly attacked the prosecution's case, focusing on Bianchi's questionable credibility and mental instability. They painted a picture of Bianchi as a pathological liar, a master manipulator who had fabricated his testimony to save himself from the death penalty. But the prosecution, led by Deputy District Attorney Roger Boren, was relentless. They meticulously presented a mountain of evidence, weaving together forensic findings, witness testimony, and Bianchi's detailed accounts of their joint activities. They painted a picture of Bueno as the dominant force behind the crimes, manipulating Bianchi and orchestrating the gruesome murders. The courtroom was filled with tension as the jury weighed the evidence and the emotional testimonies. After weeks of deliberation, the verdict finally came. Bueno was found guilty on 9 counts of murder. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief and sorrow as the judge read the verdict. Bueno was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A sentence that brought some measure of closure to the victims' families, but one that could never fully erase the pain and loss they had endured. The trials of Bianchi and Bueno were landmark events in American legal history, captivating the nation and the world and sparking intense debate about the role of plea bargaining, the validity of psychiatric testimony, and the complexities of multi-jurisdictional investigations. The Hillside Strangler case left an indelible mark on the American legal landscape, prompting changes in how such cases are handled and raising important questions about the pursuit of justice in a complex and often flawed system. It served as a stark reminder that even in the face of overwhelming evidence, the legal process can be a long and winding road, filled with twists and turns. Guys, the Hillside Strangler case left an enduring scar on the Los Angeles community. A chilling reminder of the vulnerability of women and the darkness that can lurk just beneath the surface of even the most glamorous of cities. The fear and paranoia that gripped the city during those months of terror lingered long after the killers were apprehended. The case also had a profound impact on law enforcement procedures and interagency cooperation, as well as raising ethical questions about media coverage on ongoing investigations. The trauma inflicted by these killers shattered the sense of safety and security in LA. Women were afraid to walk alone at night, and parents were hesitant to let their daughters out of their sight. The murders also heightened racial tensions, as some of the victims were from minorities, fueling speculation and distrust within the community. The psychological impact was so deep and lasting, with many women reporting heightened anxiety and fear long after the guys were apprehended. The city that once pulsed with the energy of dreams and ambition was now haunted by the spectre of violence and vulnerability. They not only had to cope with the loss of their loved ones, but also endure the graphic details of the crimes that were constantly replayed in the media. The trauma inflicted by the Hillside Stranglers continues to reverberate through the lives of those who were directly affected, as well as the broader community, serving as a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring pain of loss. The scars left by these crimes are not easily healed, and the echoes of their terror continue to haunt the collective memory of LA. This case also exposed the weaknesses in interagency communication and collaboration among law enforcement agencies in the LA County. The lack of coordination in the early stages of the investigation hindered progress and allowed the killers to continue their spree. The case served as a major wake-up call, highlighting the urgent need for change. As a result, there were significant changes implemented in how law enforcement agencies shared information and worked together. The creation of task forces, the establishment of centralized databases, and the development of standardized protocols for information sharing were some of the measures that were taken to address the shortcomings exposed by the Hillside Strangler case. These reforms have helped improve the efficiency and effectiveness of investigations, particularly in complex multi-jurisdictional cases, and have become standard practice in modern law enforcement. The Hillside Strangler case, while tragic, served as a catalyst for positive change in the way law enforcement agencies operate. Now, there were some important ethical questions about the media coverage when it came to this case. The intense media scrutiny, fueled by the sensational nature of the crimes, put immense pressure on law enforcement to solve this case quickly. However, the constant speculation and sensationalized reporting often hindered the investigation by creating false leads and fueling public hysteria. The case served as a cautionary tale about the potential dangers of media interference in investigations, prompting discussions about the balance between the public's right to know and the need to protect the integrity of ongoing investigations. Although Bianchi and Bueno were convicted and both sentenced to life imprisonment, the case continues to haunt the families of the victims. Some family members have questioned Bianchi's testimony and believe there may be other victims who have yet to be identified. Their ongoing pursuit of justice and closure serves as a reminder of the lasting trauma inflicted by these heinous crimes. The fight for truth and accountability continues, even decades after the Hillside Stranglers were brought to justice. Well, my culty crime crew, we've journeyed through the darkness of this Hillside Strangler case, a chilling tale of terror that shook LA to its very core. After looking at the crimes, exploring the investigation and the twisted psychology of the killers, and while the case may be closed, its impact reverberates through the lives of those who were touched by it. The 10 victims of Bianchi and Bueno, Yolanda, Judith, Lisa, Dolores, Sonia, Evelyn, Christina, Lauren, Kimberly and Cindy, their names are etched in the annals of true crime. A stark reminder of the vulnerability of women and the depravity of that humans are capable of. But let's not remember them solely as victims. They were daughters, sisters, friends, women with dreams and aspirations that were cruelly cut short. Their lives mattered, and their stories deserve to be told. The brutality of their deaths serve as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, even in a city known for its sunshine and glamour. The Hillside Strangler case also forced LA to confront its own demons. The rising crime rate, the social unrest, and the economic disparities. All these factors created a fertile ground for predators like Bianchi and Bueno to emerge. The case served as a wake-up call, a reminder that even in the City of Angels, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. It exposed the cracks in the system, the vulnerabilities that allowed these killers to operate undetected for so long. But amidst the darkness, there were also glimmers of hope. The dedication and perseverance of law enforcement, the bravery of witnesses who came forward, and the advancements in forensic science all played a role in bringing the killers to justice. And while the investigation was not without its flaws, it ultimately led to important changes in law enforcement procedures, helping to ensure that future tragedies might be prevented. The Hillside Strangler case, while a stain on the city's history, also spurred positive change and renewed commitment to protecting the vulnerable. Now, my culty crime crew, I know that delving into these dark stories can take an emotional toll. It's okay to feel a bit overwhelmed, saddened, or even angered by the events we've discussed in this episode. True crime can be a fascinating and even cathartic experience, but it's important to acknowledge the weight of these stories and take care of your mental well-being. If you find yourself struggling with anxiety, depression, or any mental health issues or challenges, please don't ever hesitate to reach out for help. Remember, you're not alone. As I said at the start of the episode, I've been struggling with my own mental health issues lately too, and there are resources available, and seeking support is a sign of strength, not weakness. In Australia, you can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. They are available 24/7 and provide crisis support and suicide prevention services. You can also visit their website at lifeline.org.au. If you're outside Australia, you can find support through Befrienders Worldwide. They offer emotional support and crisis intervention services in many countries. You can find their contact information at befrienders.org. And please take some time for a bit of self-care after listening to this episode, or do it while you're listening to the episode. Light a candle, take a warm bath, cuddle with your pet, or do whatever helps you feel relaxed and de-stress from the time. How you feeling? And remember, my culty crew, we're a community here. We support each other, we lift each other up, and we face the darkness together. And with that, my crew, we've reached the end of another episode. Can't believe it. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the dark heart of the Hillside Strangler case. It's been a wild ride, but I'm so glad we could do it together and explore it together. If you have any comments, thoughts, or just want to say hi, please reach out on my socials, which is at cozy.cults.crimes, and that's cozy with a Z, and it's the same on TikTok and Insta. I love to hear from you all, and it really does make my week. I really hope I'll see you again next week for another journey into the shadowy yet strangely comforting world of cozy cults and crimes. And as always, my crew, remember to stay safe, stay spooky, and never lose sight in the darkness. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Bubbles, and I'll see you next week. Bye!